June was quite an interesting reading month for me. I had everything from historical high society murders, a well-built romantasy fantasy world, and some hard-hitting feminist non-fiction on my reading list, and I had a great time reading all of that. So if you're interested to learn more about that, then stay tuned and we'll go through these different books in just a second. So yeah, welcome to my June reading wrap-up. After spending the last bit of May finishing off my spring reading challenge, I decided to take June as a chill month and just mood read whatever I felt like. With one small exception. I still needed to annotate a book for my yearly goals, but we'll get to that in a bit. Basically, at the end of the month. Anyway, in the beginning I just wanted to read something easy and fun, as I had finished May with some darker reads, including The Poppy War. If you haven't seen that video yet, I'll leave it linked for you up in the cards. But now let's get started with my June reads. First up, I continued a series that I really enjoyed the first part of. The Historical Mysteries of Inspector Beatrice Steele. In the first book, A Most Agreeable Murder, Beatrice had gotten wrapped up in a murder investigation in her hometown, and when she now travels to London in book 2, she of course starts to investigate there as well. I again really enjoyed Julia Seal's witty writing and the setting of somewhat satirical historical England, which is not meant to be serious and realistic, but makes for a very funny backdrop. In this second book, Beatrice finds that the big city is not quite what she expected, and in the beginning she struggles to find her place in it, between trying to become an inspector, which she obviously is not supposed to do as a woman, and being pushed to find a rich husband to help her family out. When a client requests her and her partner's assistance in a case, both coincide, as they need to infiltrate an exclusive society to solve a series of murders. I'm being a bit vague here, not to spoil the first book, but there's also a romance side plot that made the story even funnier, and this book is just a nice palate cleanser to smile at. With that said, it gave me pretty much what I wanted from it, and if you're looking for a simple and funny historical read, I do recommend. With that said, let's go and look what this book does for my reading goals of the year. Of course, it counts as another read book. And I will later get back to this page and actually also add it as finishing a series, because that is the latest part in the Beatrice Steele series that is out for the moment. Anyways, let us add it to the bookshelf while I explain why I did that. And in the bookshelf this month I'm going to go back to a blue color scheme, and it will get this light blue for the ebook. So let me put it in here on the unowned shelf and basically explain what's up with the series prompt. I was thinking that I might be able to actually finish a whole duology this month, but it turned out that work was a lot more than I expected it to be. So I decided to not stress myself out about getting the serious completion tick too much. So instead I decided to count this one, because if the series doesn't have a more current part out yet, then in my opinion that would count as completed as well. But moving on, as this was just a fun read, I can't put it anywhere for my book bingos, so we can actually head on over to the series tracker and finish off with that one, where I can tick off the whole series for Beatrice Steele Murder Mysteries. Next up, I unexpectedly managed to pick up the second book in the Murderbot series, Artificial Condition by Martha Wells. And I just had to do another line-based spread for this one, even though it turned out a lot simpler than the one for the first book. Anyways, the whole series usually has waiting times of more than 2 months at my library, so I was really excited when I suddenly saw that it was available, and I picked it up on short loan and read it in 2 days. To be honest, with 94 pages, that's not that hard to do, but I also really enjoy Murderbot so far, and I cannot wait to continue the series even further. If you haven't heard of the Murderbot series, it's a sci-fi from a perspective of a construct, which is made of human and machine parts, basically. Our main character is a so-called security unit, but it sees itself as Murderbot, since it has killed people and often gets into fights to protect its clients. but it is special in that it has hacked the module that controlled its actions, and now it likes to watch TV shows rather than just being on standby. After a great adventure in Book 1, Murderbot now is on a mission to find out more about its own history, specifically a time that has been erased from its memory. This means that we get to know even more of its character and motivations, and I found it really interesting to see where this journey goes. Also, I absolutely love the way that machines and bots are written in this series. I'm a programmer myself, and there are some nice little quirks in there that just feel right to me, and that give those bots more depth in my opinion. The series is so far one of my current favorites, so if any of what I said sounds interesting to you, you should definitely pick up the first book and simply see it for yourself. Since it is also just a novella with less than 100 pages, it's not a great investment to get started. In terms of my goals, it of course gets me another tick for a read book, and then it also goes onto my unowned shelf. As I said, I got it from the library. And I'm already waiting for the third book in the series to become available, but it's more than 10 weeks out at this point. So anyways, this book, again, as part of a series that I've already started this year, doesn't have that many boxes that I can additionally tick with it. So the bingos don't have anything that I can use it for. And also the author, Martha Wells, is already on my author alphabet page, so I don't have much space for it to go. However, I can put it down, of course, in the series tracker and tick off the second row in the Murderbot Diaries. And that's it for this book. And then finally, I for once didn't forget about wanting to read a magazine until the end of the month, but started it rather early. I'm still reading some of my older wildlife and nature magazines because I just enjoy them a lot, and so I picked up the local conservation magazine from the beginning of this year. The first edition of each year always introduces the German Bird of the Year, which you can vote for, and each bird is used to put some focus on their habitat as well as the bird itself. For this year, the partridge was chosen, and with it the discussion about how to keep their habitats available in farming lands. Because of course, there's a lot less diverse farming ranges out there these days, and there's not that many spaces where they can actually live and have their nests. I will say that I didn't know much about this type of bird, so it was quite interesting to do this short deep dive, and as always with these articles, I learned something new and I enjoyed the process. As such, if you don't regularly read magazines, I do recommend you try it. The short-form articles are a different type of reading, and magazines are great to fill shorter breaks, in which you might not want to start a full novel. Would you be interested in my opinion on magazines in more detail? Let me know in the comments. But anyway, let's get back to my reading journal and let's move on to the goal spreads for this magazine as well. As I said last month, I changed what counts as a read book, so the magazine doesn't go down in there, but I of course have my own tracker for reading one magazine per month, so I can tick it off down here. And it also goes on my bookshelf, and the stack of magazines is growing nicely. We can see that I have finished the first half of the year with reading one magazine each month, and I'm quite happy that this is going so well. But I also do have more space, so maybe I can pick up additional magazines at some point. We'll see, I guess. While I would want to do that, I also have so many great books waiting for me, so it's always a bit of a choice. But anyway, as the magazine for the month, it of course also goes down in my monthly goal spread, and I'm gonna just color it in a nice other tone of green. And as you can see, most of the magazines that I read this year so far are on the topic of nature, and that makes a lot of green on this page, but I like it, so it's fine. And that of course finishes off all that I need to put in for the magazine, so let's move on. After these early quick reads, I started my audiobook for a month as well. And this time I picked something that I wasn't quite sure if I would like it, but I had heard of Toni Morrison in regards to literary prizes, and as I was interested in reading something about the culture of colored people as well, so I picked up one of her books, namely Sula. And that was a very different kind of story. While the focus is often on Sula and her best friend Nell, we get a full view of the bottom, a black part of the town of Medallion in the early 1900s. This starts even before the birth of the two girls with their mothers and then continues until after the end of Sula's life. I will say that this meant that we get a lot of insights into the different generations and the way of life in this community, but it was also a very literary and meandering story. And for me personally, maybe also because I was listening to it and not reading it directly, it was really hard to stay focused on listening for an extended period of time. I did like the depth of story, but I sometimes lacked the idea of where it was going to actually keep me interested. So honestly, I'm not quite sure what I think about it overall. I'm happy to get some idea of that culture and the hardships that those people had to face, but especially Sula is a very unlikable character, even if you can somewhat understand her and where she comes from. So this again felt difficult and dark, and I had a point where I almost stopped listening. So yeah, I'd say you really need to like literary and slow stories for this one, which I do sometimes, but not quite that much, I guess. But anyway, I did finish it in the end, and I'm not too sad about it. So let's move on and let's look at my goal spreads one more time. So let's move over to look at my goal overview pages. This of course also counts as another read book, and that brings me up to the halfway mark of my overall reading goal of reading 60 books this year, which is great because it's June. Of course, the book also goes onto my unowned bookshelf, and this time it is colored in a darker blue because this was an audiobook, so that is gonna be the dark blue one for this month. And since this book was such a different type of book, it also fits into my book bingo because I can use it to fill the space for literary fiction, as it was very much so. It doesn't fit on the themes though, so I'm just gonna go and move on over to check the alphabet challenge, but unfortunately it doesn't fit in there either. But at least I had a very different read this month. For my final novel of the month, I picked something that has been waiting on my shelves for way too long. Dance of Thieves by Mary E. Pearson. I read the Remnant Chronicles trilogy a few years back, and I enjoyed it enough to buy this book. But then life things happened and I didn't get around to reading it. So it has been looking at me for a bit, and now I finally had the time and was in the right mood to jump into it. And it was such a fun story. In this YA romantasy, we follow two strong main characters and their love story. Kazi is a female elite soldier for the Kingdom of Wenda and heads out with some friends and colleagues on a secret mission to catch a dangerous criminal. He was seen in a region where Chase's family reigns, and so the two end up meeting in the streets, and fate binds them together, forcing them to get to know each other a lot better than they actually wanted to. Honestly, the beginning was a bit too cliché for me. A very tropey enemies to lovers, forced proximity YA romance that felt way too quick in my opinion, and I almost regretted that I picked up the book for a few pages. But then things turned around and the focus shifted back to the missions of both main characters and also to the world building and very interesting politics of this fantasy world that feels like it might actually be in the far future of this one. And with the plot becoming more relevant again and the romance taking more of a backseat, while still staying relevant in their understanding for each other, I fall back into the story and absolutely like the rest of it. As this is a duology, I have already ordered the second part because I do want to continue on soon, and even if it doesn't exactly end on a cliffhanger, it was a good enough ending that it made me crave more. So if you don't mind a bit of YA romance and a bit of contrived plot lines in the beginning, then I think this would be a great read for you as well. And I hope that the second book is as good. I will let you know soon enough. With that said, let's move over to my goal spreads one more time. And of course, I can tick it off as one more read book and as the first actually owned book that I read this month. So this finally gives me that field as well. And this means that I can color in one more book on my own bookshelf, which is great because there's a lot of empty spaces over here still left open. And I will use the light blue to color it in, as that is the color scheme for this month. But at least one more space is filled in this way. In terms of the book bingos, it does fit into the themes as well, because in this book we do have a horse that has a name and that is actively playing part in the storyline. So I figured it is fair enough to say that this book contains a horse, and I'll put it down for this one. Of course, all of this means that I will put down this book in the monthly goals as well, so let me color it in over here and just fill up this lovely spread as well. The only thing that's now still open is, of course, the annotation book, and that will be coming next, since I'm almost done at this point, so I hope that I'll make it within the month. If not, it will be fine as well, but we'll see. Anyways, as I said that this book contained a horse, of course I also have to add at least a little horse to my animal collection. So let's put it in over here. And with it settled between some other nice animals, we can move on all the way to the series tracker, as it doesn't fit onto my alphabet challenges. And of course I've already prepared a lovely small space for this duology as well, so that I can tick off the first book in here. And that's it for this book as well, so let's move on. As I've alluded to already, I also spent a lot of this last month reading Invisible Women by Caroline Criado Perez, as I really wanted to dive deeper into my research topic of biases in AI. This non-fiction book was incredibly helpful for this, as the author has collected a huge amount of studies and information on the data gap concerning women. While I already knew that there is often less knowledge on female issues than on male ones, I wasn't aware how wide this gap truly is. In so many areas, reaching from everyday travel to work to healthcare, women are just not studied enough. Why? Because our hormones and irregular patterns make it harder to get clean results. And instead of taking that on as a challenge, most researchers, often men, simply choose male participants instead. Of course, this has consequences. With most data by default being male-centered, women become invisible in terms of actionable data sets. Few studies even aggregate their results by gender as well as other points, so we cannot even know all that we're missing. But it becomes very clear from reading this book that women are hugely underrepresented and don't get heard enough. Not because men don't care and want to keep women small, necessarily, but simply because they don't think about issues they themselves don't have. And with so many men in positions of power and so few women in the same positions, this won't change too quickly. In any case, it was quite eye-opening to learn about so many different fields, and I'm not yet done with this book even though I have finished reading it. But it was also a hard and long read already, so I have decided to take a bit of a break before returning to it and actually collecting the most relevant points that I've marked for my topic. Anyway, if you're interested in this topic, I will make a dedicated video on biases in AI, focused mostly on a female perspective, at some point in the future, and I already have a video up on my research process, which I'll link to you in the cards. But that's it for this book for now. The rest will follow soonish, I hope. So let's quickly go through the goal pages as well. Of course, this book counts as another read book, and it also is, of course, the annotated book for this quarter that I just barely managed to finish in June. As such, it goes down on my bookshelves, and since I own it, I of course have to color it in on my new shelf because I bought it this year. As you can see, I forgot to also put it on the annotated shelf, so I fixed that later on, but that's okay. Next up, it also fits on my quarterly goals spread and finally fills up the square for April to June, so quarter 2 of this year. So let me color it in here and put it down as the annotated book. And finally, this book also fits onto my alphabet challenge as well, because I don't have a title with I yet, so I'll put it down there before we're done with this book as well. And that's it for June. In case you're wondering why this video is up this late, well, I was away last weekend and didn't have any time to edit it, because I went to my first convention, to the Eurocon 2026 in Berlin. I had an amazing time talking about books, writing, and making new friends in this scene, so I was really busy and I'm absolutely glad I went. As I learned so much, I will definitely make at least one video, probably more, on the topic soon as well. So if you enjoyed today's video and that sounds interesting to you, then please consider subscribing, and I hope to see you again in my next video. So thanks for watching, have a great day, and go read something nice.